Hey YouTube, what's going on? Thank you for coming back to There Has to Be Something More. I'm your humble host, Scott Moore. Yeah, I know. My hair could use a good cut and brushing, but it's early in the morning. Sam and I are up here on the roof, and we're just enjoying some cup of coffee number 2. You can tell I'm not quite awake yet. And Sam's just enjoying the rooftop. So, thought I'd go over something. I have seen these videos before, but I thought I'd put, there's a couple things that people seem to keep missing, but if you're watching this channel, then there's a good chance that you are thinking about retiring, thinking about moving to another country, thinking about traveling. And of course, one of the big questions is, at what age should we retire? And specifically on this one is, at what age do we take Social Security? So this was the business that I was in for almost 40 years. Boy, it is beautiful up here today. Sunny, still kind of burning off the clouds a little bit this morning. But yeah, so at what age do we start taking Social Security? 62, 67, 70. Some of you have got savings and you're trying to kind of figure out how that plays into it. Recently, the average life expectancy has gone down in the US. So and I just pulled up these numbers quickly, so if they're not, I think they're pretty close, if not exact, but average life expectancy, 77.28 in the US. And then of course it depends, are you male, female, what's your race, what city you live in. But when you're trying to figure out Social Security, it's a life expectancy bet. How long am I going to live determines when I should take Social Security. Of course, we don't know when our last day is going to be, so that's a guess. So we have to look at family history, we have to look at our health, we have to look at, is our health going to change if we're in a different country, and will that be a negative or positive effect? But the 2024 average Social Security check is $1,907. And so you're trying to figure out, and I'm just going to give some basic numbers here, but if you're going to start taking Social Security at 62, you're going to get a reduced rate. You're going to get a reduced check. Now, I would advise all of you go to ssa.gov. That's the Social Security Administration website. If you haven't already opened up an account, open up your own account. Used to be a terrible website. It's a pretty good website now. You can look back and see all of your earnings for all the years you've worked, and you can see, like, how much would I get if I started taking Social Security at 62? For most of us, the full retirement age is 67, or what if I wait till 70? Now, some of this depends on also, what are my sticking points to staying in the US? Is there a family that I'm not willing to leave? I mean, if that's the case, then, I would just say there are airplanes here as well. So, for our family, for example, we were so spread out. Lydia and I, the last place we lived was Greenville, South Carolina. But, our 4 daughters are in Naples, Florida, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Lynchburg, Virginia, and Oklahoma City. So we were spread out anyway. I mean, for a lot of these things, we'd have to take a flight to go see the kids and grandkids anyway. Other things that might keep you in the US, like, hey, I just love my job and I'm making great money. If that's the case, probably no reason for you to move abroad. I mean, go on a vacation a couple times a year. But if your goal is, hey, I want an adventure, I do not want to stick around the US, then you kind of have to figure out, when am I going to start taking Social Security? If you start taking Social Security at 67, you've given up 5 years of checks. So like for my Social Security, I'm not going to give any exact numbers, but it's going to be somewhere between $2,100 and $2,200 a month at 62. It'd be about $900 more if I would have worked and waited until 67. Well, you say, wow, $900 a month extra, that's a lot. But I'm giving up 5 years of checks. I mean, that comes out to somewhere around 130 grand. So 5 years of checks, I would have collected $130,000. Now, my check's going to be $900 a month larger, but how long does it take me to recoup that 130 grand that I missed out on? And at what age, would I be? It works out to, you've given up 13, 14 years. If all of a sudden you say, well, gee, by the time I break even, if I wait till 67, I'd be like 79. Well, the average white male in the US, now the life expectancy is 75.3. The Social Security knows the math, and the math is in their favor. So, you have to kind of sit down, crunch the numbers. If I'm going to miss those 5 years or I'm going to miss those 8 years, how much have I given up in paychecks and how long is it going to take me to recoup? Usually, those numbers are somewhere in the high 70s. I'm going to have to be, 78, 79, 80 years old before I break even. A lot of people decide to take their Social Security at 62. Really, almost 3/4 of Americans take their Social Security at 62. A lot of them because they're not sure what kind of changes are going to take place going forward, and they want to go ahead and get started. I think for a lot of people, the hope is that they're going to be grandfathered in, and if there are changes, it's not going to affect them too much. Health is another thing. So if I were, so we retired when we were 55 and 60. And I didn't think at the time that my health was that bad, but, by the time we got over here, the first year, I didn't go on a diet or anything, but just from walking and eating more fruits and vegetables, because that's what was available in Matagalpa, 35 pounds just fell off me. So my health is drastically improved. There's still a couple things that I'm working on, but Lydia and I go to the gym, we do long walks. I mean, pretty much every day we're doing something. So, is your health getting worse as you sit there and, try to delay taking Social Security and delay your retirement and delay moving abroad? But again, if you love your work, that's a different thing. I didn't hate my work, but near the end, it was getting to be a grind. I just kind of felt like doing the same thing over and over and over every day. And then, one of the last things that definitely there was some financial things that pushed me to retire a little bit early, because our plan had always been to retire at 62. But the financial things were that the real estate prices in Greenville had gone way, way up very quickly. So we were going to make quite a bit more money on the house than we thought we were. And all of a sudden, interest rates started to go up. Now, my mom and brother were in the real estate and mortgage business forever. And, they were telling me, look, if your plan is to get out in a few years, now might be the time before interest rates go way, way high. All of the, like first-time home buyers kind of washes them out of the market. So there were some financial things that kind of gave us a nudge. And then the last thing, I guess, was at work. Work was all of a sudden getting real weird. Like, most of the managers that I had over the last 20 years or so, one of the things they would tell you when you came to a new company to work was leave politics out of it. If somebody starts bringing up politics, it's just not a good way it's not something you want to work into the conversation. And so just, you know, like my last manager, I distinctly remember him saying, you know, anytime anybody asked him about politics, he'd say, you know what, we're not going to change the world today, but we can definitely work on your retirement plan. And that was kind of his patented answer of anytime anybody started bringing up politics, he just kind of avoid it with that statement. And I always thought that was a good one. But then near the end, politics started getting pushed into corporate America. I had never seen it before. We had managers that were, you know, basically preaching to us on group calls and group Zoom calls, you know, that things that they were doing, like they were out marching for Black Lives Matter. And then we'd get all these mandatory classes on diversity, equity, inclusion, these mandatory classes that we'd have to go through. We'd have classes on how the US was systematically racist. It was nonstop, and it was over and over and over again. Now, you know, we are, with Lydia and I, we are a tri-racial family that lived for a number of years in the Deep South, and we never had a problem. And so I don't want to make this channel political either. You know, everybody has their own particular thoughts, but it was kind of that part of it was those mandatory meetings were getting old. And so that was one of the last things, and it was a relief. Even though I had some good friends at work, you know, it was a relief to finally get out of there. And, you know, just not having to show up in the morning. You know, having the day is mine, and how I want to spend it, what I want to do, you know, it's all up to me. Now, the one thing that I almost never see people touching on, because like when you're just real basics, and I'm not getting into any detail, I don't know anybody's finances out there that's watching this channel. Typically, when people are retiring, they're looking at using their Social Security. If it's a couple, they're looking at 2 Social Security checks. When one passes away, the other gets to keep the larger of the 2 checks. And then with their other savings, 401ks, IRAs, you know, anything else that they've tucked away, probably the most common strategy financial advisors use is called the 4% rule. There's a lot of strategies out there, but that's probably the most common one. And the 4% rule, you can Google it. Hundreds of things will come up, and it's going to, some will be pro, some will be con, some will say the 4% rule doesn't work anymore. Anyway, there was a lot of studies done. The largest was called the Trinity study, and it was at Trinity University. What the 4% rule shows is if you've got a moderate mix of stocks and bonds, and you take 4% a year from that account, you will never run out of money over a 25-year retirement. So that's just a real quick and easy way to say, okay, I know how much my Social Security check's going to be, and then of course you're going to get a cost of living adjustment. And then if I use that 4% rule, you know, if I've got $1 million, I can figure on $40,000 worth of income. If I've got $500,000, $20,000. If I've got $100,000, you know, $4,000 a year. And there's other ways to do it. There's guaranteed ways where you don't have to worry about the market, like SPIAs, single premium investment annuities, immediate annuities. But that's kind of a real quick and easy way to figure out what your income's going to be like. Social Security, and then use the 4% rule on all the savings. Now, here's what's really cool about leaving early and retiring early. Now, Lydia and I have been using savings, you know, for our first year over here. I'm still not old enough to collect Social Security. But all that money in savings, if I would have waited and we retired at 67, I would have had to start pulling money out of my retirement account immediately. You know, I would have needed the income. I would have had Social Security, and I would have started pulling money out of my retirement plan. And, you know, so likely my retirement plan would have started getting smaller annually. You know, it depends on what the markets do, but all of a sudden I'm gonna start spending that down. When I retire and move over here, anything that we have in savings, you know, with Social Security, we'll pay more than, we won't spend all my Social Security. There'll still be money in savings every month after we do anything we want to do. I mean, unless we're going, you know, to some expensive flights where we're going somewhere from here to Argentina or something. But for the most part, you know, we're still spending about $1,100 for Lydia and I every month, somewhere around that, and then a couple $100 a month more for the dogs, for vet and heartworm and flea and tick and all that kind of stuff. So we'll still be putting money in savings now, but what that does for my retirement accounts is now I can leave that money in there. There's something in the investment business called the rule of 72. And the rule of 72 says whatever interest rate you're getting, it tells you how long it takes for your money to double. So for example, if I'm getting 7.2% a year on my investments, my money's going to double every 10 years. If I'm getting 10% a year on my investments, my money's going to double every 7.2 years. Well, now I can leave all that money in my retirement account. I don't need it. I'm not using it. So that's just going to sit in there and double. Hopefully, you know, with our accounts, we, you know, shoot for trying to have the money double every 10 years. So we're trying to get 7.2% a year on our investments. But that money can sit in there until finally required minimum distributions come around. So required minimum distributions, or RMDs, that's when the government says, okay, Scott, you've been, you know, putting money in there tax advantaged for all these years. You've never paid taxes on it. We want you to start pulling some money out of this account because we want the taxes. So usually just, you know, that's going to work out to somewhere around 4%. Everybody's going to be a little different. Your financial company will calculate that for you. And when you have to pull that out, it used to be 72. It was 70 and a half for a long time. Things have changed since I left the business, and really I haven't followed all the rules. But you know, when you have to take RMDs keeps going up in age. So, you know, at this point, I think I can go all the way to like 73 or 74 years old before I have to start pulling anything out of those retirement accounts. I just sit there and let that money grow and grow and grow and grow. So to me, it's a huge advantage of not only do I get, you know, I get to leave and go have fun for, you know, 7 years earlier than normal. So I'm going to go run around, enjoy myself, do whatever I want to do for 7 years before I hit that full retirement age of Social Security. My money's going to keep growing and growing and growing. It's just a win-win. Now, when you're going to take your Social Security, it all kind of depends on your plan. But I would just say the first thing to do is go to ssa.gov, open your account, check and see how much would I get if I start taking it at 62, how much at 67, how much at 70, determine, you know, is my health going to improve? Am I really stressed out at work? Maybe that's, you know, another reason to start taking it early. And I'm not telling anybody when to take their Social Security. If you love your job and say, no way, I'm moving away from family, you know, I love my job, I'm making great money, you know, staying in the U.S. is a great option. You know, I love the United States. It's just that, you know, Lydia and I both needed an adventure. We had gone to a lot of countries. We wanted to see a lot more before we were too old. You know, mobility is an issue at some point, so we wanted to get out as early as we could. We love to travel. We have not regretted leaving early for 1 minute, and you know, plan to go see a lot more places. But if you have any questions, you know, about your Social Security, you know, there's a lot of great sources on YouTube, a lot of channels that I like. If you want a real plain spoken guy, I always get a kick out of Josh at Heritage Wealth Planning. He's very, very sharp, and everything that he talks about is in plain English that anybody can understand. You don't have to be, any kind of an investment expert to get a lot out of his videos. But if you have any questions for me, please put them down below. In the meantime, if you're getting something out of this channel, please like and subscribe. It helps us a lot, it really does, and we appreciate it. Hope y'all are having a great day, and just remember, if you need an adventure, you want to get out of that US hamster wheel, you want to start having some fun and doing what you want to do on your time, just remember, there has to be something more.